Hey everybody, how are you? Welcome back to Entrepreneur Spotlight, the series in which we talk to Muslims making a difference in our ummah. Today we're joined by Taha Dar, the founder of revolutionary property search engine SearchSmartly. The search engine that's changing the way renters find a place not only to stay, but also a place to belong. With a history in engineering, consultancy, and investment banking, Taha has brought all of his exciting talents to one startup. If you'd like to start by telling us what did you do before you started SearchSmartly?
Great. So my background is as an engineer. I studied engineering. I was obsessed with Formula One and planes, and that was sort of my thing. So I studied engineering at university and then went into that industry after graduation. I got very early exposure to machine learning and data science back in sort of 2012 to 2016, before machine learning was really accessible by broader industry. So really early on, I could see the massive potential that data science could have on improving consumer experiences. And that's where the seeds behind SearchSmartly were born. So that led to me then eventually leaving and pursuing the idea.
Would there be any advice that you'd give to, let's say, graduates that just came out of uni? Would there be any advice that you'd give them in terms of like finding a place? Is it still possible for a young person to live in London?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, there's a couple of advantages that you can leverage in the sense that renting a place which you can share with other people is more economical per person than trying to rent a one-bed flat. So obviously, it's cheaper to share a two-bed, two-bathroom home than it is to rent a one-bed flat for yourself. Number two is be flexible about area. So rather than sort of commit yourself to one particular postcode or try and pick a spot that's sort of in the middle of your two workplaces. So actually, that's where one of the functionalities of SearchSmartly comes from. We have a travel time search. So you can put in up to 2 different workplace addresses. So if you think on a more flexible level, say, well, actually, I'm open to other different neighborhoods, as long as they are a good commute, they're within budget, and they have the local amenities that you care about, that can be a great way to unlock areas that perhaps you would never have considered otherwise and have more options on the table for a search.
Taking us back to the early days of SearchSmartly, what kind of financial stresses did you go through to start your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think every business in the early days has massive financial stresses. That's the one resource you generally don't have as an early startup. You have lots of time on your hands, but money is a hard thing to come by. So raising our first funding round was challenging. We had all sorts of hiccups along the way as well. We had a term sheet signed from a VC investor, but then they pulled out last minute for a very strange reason, which never really made sense even in hindsight. You're in that precarious position where you need that funding coming in to keep the lights on. Ultimately, that's the most important thing for us founders: having food on the table and the lights on at home. Everything else is a bonus typically when you're at that sort of early stage, and obviously paying for whatever software that you need to be building out, and so on and so forth. So that would be my sort of general advice. Trying to minimize that bridge that you want to cross from having a stable job as we often do to really going all out with your business.
I mean, during these times of I guess like financial difficulties with the investor pulling out and things like that, did faith help you during those moments?
Yeah, I fundamentally believe that everything happens for a reason, and it's a test. How do we react to that? And I think having that approach and having faith in things eventually coming to a conclusion one way or the other, and knowing that sometimes some of these things are just totally out of your hands, but how you react to it is the most important thing in any given situation. It's not a skill, but it's just like a persistence, I would say, to know that you just need to keep soldiering on. And I think that's an important characteristic that founders need to have, because things will always go wrong. Everything that can go wrong probably will. And that's particularly true for an early stage company where nothing's in place and everything can fall apart at the snap of a finger. And yeah, having faith and being persistent and kind of holding steadfast through those difficult times is really absolutely critical. Otherwise, the company will never survive the ups and downs of that early stage journey of a business.
What does the word wealth mean to you?
It's an interesting question. I think for different people, it's defined in different ways, but ultimately, I think wealth is fulfillment of some sort, whether it's fulfillment from a personal sort of capacity. I think wealth can be defined in a very broad way, just, having that self-satisfaction within the work that you're doing and the work that you're achieving and the outcomes that you're helping deliver. I think there's an immense amount of happiness that comes with that. And for me, that wealth of knowledge, that wealth of experience, that wealth of outcomes is part of that story of wealth. Then there's that sort of monetary, or let's say tangible element of wealth as well. So I think I always prefer to think of wealth in a much more broad term beyond just how much cash do you have in the bank, or how many pound worth of shares do you have in your stocks accounts, and so on and so forth.
So from 2018 to now, is there a moment that was very memorable to you?
Yeah, I think the first bit of revenue is always a really big one, I think, because that's when you really know that it works. Like, everything sounds good on paper, everything makes sense theoretically, but until someone is willing to pay for it as a business, I think the idea is always unvalidated. So that's, I think for me, it was a long time coming, and it was a massive like achievement, I think, like still.
What kind of advice would you give to people who are also starting their own businesses?
Yeah, there's different ways to kind of cut this question. And one way that I like to think of business is, what's the risk, right? There's different types of risks that exist in any business. Even if you're taking something which is a really straightforward concept, like setting up a flower shop.
Right.
The flower business is well proven. But what are the risks involved in your business? Well, maybe it's about the location. So maybe proving out that this is the right location to set up a shop in. Or there's a risk around branding. What sort of branding do we want to come up with to make our flower business stand out amongst others? And then think about, how can you prove or de-risk that risk to make sure that it's, your likelihood of making a mistake is lowered before you fully commit to that lease and that branding and spending tens of thousands of pounds setting up the business. What can you do to de-risk those big risks before you dive deep? And that's true for any business. Every business has its own risks. So think about what those risks are, and then say, how can I test this risk in a cheap, quick way? And the more you can do that before you really go deep into the business, the better chance you'll have of avoiding mistakes, costly errors, or just wasting time on something that might not work.
Did you know all of this? Like, this is trial and error, right? Did you?
Yeah, a lot of it is trial and error. Absolutely, yeah. Unlike engineering, where there's very clear theory where you know what the right answer is, business is a lot of trial and error, a lot of just testing and seeing what comes back. And so testing is really, really important in any business. And that's what I would just advise to anyone starting a business. Try and test stuff. It's very easy to push yourself in a space where you say, well, I'm just going to build this the next few months, just purely about building.
What do you wish you knew before you started SearchSmartly?
Oof, that's a really good question. It stumped me there. What do I wish I knew? I guess just the amount of time and effort everything takes. Everything takes twice as long or 3 times as long as you think. And that's still true today. So I think maybe planning certain things out better in advance would probably mean that, we would probably have avoided making certain mistakes. We went down a few product routes and made a few decisions that perhaps maybe took more time and resource that in the end weren't really worth the effort. So yeah, maybe I'd pick that one.
What are your plans for SearchSmartly's future? Firstly, tell me the medium, and then we can go to long term.
Yeah, in the medium term, so SearchSmartly's vision really is helping every household find the right place to live at the right time. And we're empowering people to do that through data. So in the medium term, our goal is to have an all-encompassing platform that has all the insights that you as a mover might need to help decide what is that right place to call home, and really make that process of finding and moving into a home as seamless as possible. And we're not just doing that through data, but we're doing that through customer service as well. So our team is there to help you from start to finish, supporting you at every step of the journey. And we want SearchSmartly to be established as that one place where you can go to for impartial advice and really quick insights on what that perfect home is and where it is. So that's really the medium-term vision, to make sure that the product allows people to do all of that.
Right. And long term, where do you see the company in 5 years?
Yeah, long term, what we are building, we think, is going to be the infrastructure layer or the operating system for property search all over the world. Globally, consumers are becoming more and more flexible about where they live, and that's being accelerated by COVID. Now, many people say, well, if I'm only coming into the office 2 days a week or 3 days a week, then do I really need to be within a 20-minute commute? What if I trade that for a 1-hour commute? What can I get? Can I be closer to a good school for my kids, or have nicer cafes nearby, or a nicer neighborhood, and can I have more green space? Different people have different priorities. And so we think that that's a trend that will play itself out and will continue to be a trend over the coming years. And there's no platform out there that is solving for property in this deeply personalized way. Now, what we're building has that global scale, although we're currently primarily based in the UK. We want to build that sort of operating system for search and apply it to other markets all over the world. And really, that's our vision. We want SearchSmartly to power hyper-personal property search the world over in that sort of five-year horizon.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this has been very insightful for me, specifically because I'm also looking for a place, and I admit I've been using SearchSmartly as well. I was using it to see how far I can go back from Bond Street in central London. So it's really, really useful, and I really appreciate you taking out the time of your day today to speak to us. So yeah, I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Ahmed. Really appreciate it, and really good to speak.
All right, Taha.
Awesome.
I'll speak to you soon.
Have a good weekend. Take care.
See ya.